So just what is Sony planning on doing with the PlayStation brand in the upcoming years? Well, I've spent some time thinking about it, and I think I have an idea. I'm going to discuss the current state of PlayStation and its products and what Sony's going to transition to within the next few years and the next generation if they even follow one. So let's start with the very small elephant in the room. Why does the PlayStation 4 Slim even exist? I mean, for $100 more, you can get a PlayStation 4 Pro which has double the hard drive size and is twice as powerful, or more than twice as powerful. So what the hell is the point of the PlayStation 4 Slim? Well, there's two reasons it exists. If you want the first reason, well, look at the Black Friday and Cyber Monday numbers. The PlayStation 4 Slim absolutely demolished everything else video game related. It sold more than the Xbox One S. It sold a lot more than the PlayStation 4 Pro. It's clearly there because Sony is not able to really put out bargain deals on the PlayStation 4 Pro just yet. So they still have their original hardware, or at least a modern architecture version of their original hardware. They're able to knock the price down, bundle some games with it, and sell it for a super cheap price. It was $250 on Black Friday and Cyber Monday, which is just crazy. That's crazy cheap for what you get from that thing. So that's the first reason. The first reason is that Sony is not able to bargain the PlayStation 4 Pro just yet, so the PlayStation 4 Slim exists to fill that slot for now. The second reason, which is the bigger reason, is the fact that releasing the PS4 Pro and replacing the original PlayStation 4 with it would be a PR nightmare for two different reasons. One, it's common to see a video game system have its price lowered over time, so that a lot of people actually wait to buy consoles until their price is a lot lower. Like right now, you'll see people buying the PlayStation 4 Slim because of its lowered price. So if they got rid of the original PlayStation 4 or didn't release the Slim, they would have gotten from a $350 price, a $300 price, and then bumped right back up to $400, which would be a PR nightmare in that aspect. The second aspect is it would send a message to the people who own the original PS4 is, sorry, you're being left behind in the dust. We don't actually give a shit about that old hardware anymore, so yeah, sorry, you guys suck. So they're trying to avoid that PR nightmare of their old fans of the original PlayStation 4 being left in the dust because of the release of the PlayStation 4 Pro. And they're actually doing a pretty good job at that. A lot of PS4 owners aren't really feeling that left in the dust right now, and that's pretty good. So that's the state of the PlayStation consoles right now. I'm not really going to talk about VR at all because that's still kind of an experiment. So what are Sony's upcoming plans for the PlayStation in the next few years? Well, we're not totally sure because Sony has actually said multiple different things that contradict each other. We heard from a while back from Shuei Yoshida that he wasn't even totally sure that there was even going to be a PlayStation 5. But then we heard other comments from PlayStation executives when they were asked about the concept of generations and how Microsoft is trying to abandon that. More on that in a little bit. And they said that they would love to do that, but they're not totally sure that they can because of the way the PS4's processor is, whatever that's supposed to mean. Here's my guess. Sony wanted to make a more powerful PlayStation 4 to cater to people that have 4K TVs. They wanted something that would look good on 4K TVs. So they released the PlayStation 4 Pro. Now, Sony as a whole, they're not doing as badly as they were a few years ago, but they're still not doing amazing. They're trying to trim as much fat as they can, and the PlayStation and movie brands are pretty much what's keeping them alive. So they still couldn't go balls to the wall with a super powerful console because they couldn't risk losing a bunch of money. So they wanted to keep a system that would be roughly around $400, nothing higher than that, because anything higher than that, and people might not even buy it. So that's why the PlayStation 4 Pro is 4.2 teraflops, doesn't have a 4K Blu-ray player inside of it, and is relatively simplistic. It's not because Sony was cheaping out, it's because they could not spend too much money on developing a system. So this is actually going to play into their favor a little bit. What they're doing now, since Microsoft announced the Scorpio, is they're going to see what Microsoft does. We're going to see what hand Microsoft plays, what cards they're going to lay on the table. Because as soon as they see what Microsoft's doing, they're going to do something to try and one-up them. The Scorpio was in development for probably around the same amount of time as the PlayStation 4 Pro was, which means that they probably aren't making that in response to the Pro. I think the Scorpio is actually being made for the same reason the Pro is being made, and that's to keep their Xbox fans, just like how Sony was doing this for PlayStation fans, from migrating over to PC, which is what happens every single generation when the consoles start getting really weak. Now, Microsoft has a lot of money. They have a lot of money, and even though the Xbox division has never really turned a profit for them, they keep it open anyways because they just have so much money. That's why Microsoft is able to go balls to the wall with the Scorpio. They could totally release a system sell it for 500 or 600, but make it for even more money than that and take a loss on the system because they have more than enough money to do so. So if they want to release a 6.2 whatever teraflop Xbox Scorpio and make it work with native 4K at 30 frames per second, they totally can do that if they want to. Because if people don't buy it as much, then oh well, that's just another experiment of theirs that they tried and then it didn't work out as well. Although I actually think it will work out pretty well. I have a series of videos coming up, or if you're watching this later on, they might already be out, where I'm going to kind of explain why both Sony and Microsoft, ways that they can beat each other in this quote-unquote 4K console game. So once Sony sees what cards Microsoft laid out on the table, they're going to do one of two things. The first thing they could possibly do is develop a true PlayStation 5 and make it completely one-up the Scorpio in every single way and release it in 2018 or 2019. If they are just seeing what Microsoft is doing, then all they'd have to do is make the system more powerful, make it at a competitive price, and add a bunch of features and give it a bunch of good games. That is what made the PlayStation 4 originally win, as time went on, so they could easily redo that with the PlayStation 5, although, this time around it's going to be a lot tougher because of Phil Spencer being at the helm of Xbox. Last time, Sony had a little bit easier. The other thing they could do is they could release just a general updated PlayStation and not necessarily make it a PlayStation 5 and have it be completely backwards compatible with PlayStation 4 games, and who knows, maybe with the extra power they can start doing PS3 games and, PS2, PS1, although the PS4 could easily do PS2 and PS1 games. I mean, sure, the PlayStation 5 could be the name of this updated PlayStation, but I'm talking more in the PlayStation 5 being kind of like an update like the PS4 was to the PS3, where it's its own distinct generation, while this idea of a general PlayStation upgrade would be pretty much just a continuation of the PS4's architecture, so that all those old games could run, and new games could run too. It's kind of like when new iPhones are released, and you can still play games on older iPhones, although over time they get cut off, but certain ones may not run as well. If Sony took the latter route, that would leave both PlayStation and Xbox out of the console generation cycle. Now they're releasing consoles that are new hardware, but they're not necessarily new generations. They're treating it more like PC in the fact that you can still play all of your old games from the old systems as long as it's on the same architecture without any sort of problems, even if you upgrade your hardware. I actually see this as a pretty welcome change, as that's one of the biggest downsides of game consoles, is if you want to play your old games, you either have to wait for a backwards compatibility patch like the Xbox One has had for 360, or you have to keep your old hardware, especially if you want to play it in proper performance. While on the PC, I have games from last generation, I have games from the 6th generation, the 5th, even the 4th, all on my PC, easily able to run without any sort of backwards compatibility problems. It would be nice to see that come to consoles, and that would be a very welcome change. So yeah, to wrap things up, Sony's going to keep the PlayStation 4 Slim released for a while until they can keep the PlayStation 4 Pro's price pretty low. And then they're going to see what Microsoft does with Scorpio, and then they're going to release a new system in response to whatever the Scorpio ends up being, whether that be a distinct new generation console or just another hardware upgrade. We'll have to see when the time comes. But anyways, you all have a great rest of your day.